I'm here to discuss why Danhausen and Hook should be a tag team. And this is not open for debate because I absolutely believe that this should be the case. And we're going to go down some rabbit holes that no one wants to go down, but we're about to go down them. As it stands at this point, Danhausen has a role on AEW, but it's kind of a weird one because from what I've seen, from what he did on the indies, his shtick was his big thing. So when you have somebody who their shtick is their big thing, you had people like Orange Cassidy, which that was also the case, but Orange Cassidy, when he's separated from his shtick, can really, really go in the ring, like to the point of just as good as the best ones that are in AEW. Danhausen's more of a middling. That's the thing from what I've seen. He could shock me at some point in time, but his shtick is his big thing. And because of that, he's kind of in a weird place because AEW is all about the wrestling, and that sort of a character is sort of a weird thing to know what to do with, because you have people like Abaddon and people who are characters that clearly they have not necessarily known what they should be doing with, and that's why you don't see Abaddon much except on Dark and different things like that. So Danhausen's in a weird place because he is very much a character wrestler. He is very much comedy in a company that's not necessarily all about that. And because of that, you've got somebody who is incredibly over, incredibly popular, and you're sort of in a place of not really knowing what to do with him. They've already discussed this on the Cultaholic podcast, that they're just like, what do you do with Danhausen? Then you've got the whole situation with Hook, who does not talk. He comes across like one of the big heavies, say Hager or Wardlow or Brian Cage, who don't do a huge amount of talking, but that's because that's not really their thing. Their thing is being imposing. Well, Hook is being presented as somebody who, he's a killer in the ring and this, that, and the other, but he is not imposing. I'm just going to say that right now. I can't tell how tall he is. He is slim, though. He is not Brian Cage. So you've got a bit of a problem with him too, because he does not talk, so there's no real way to establish a character other than the fact we know he looks like he has been locked out of his dorm room at all times and he likes chips. That's your character at this point. So he's kind of in a weird place too, that yes, he's very, very over because of what he's done in the ring and kind of how he presents himself as sort of a millennial version of a heavy, or Gen Z version of a heavy, but he does not have a really set path at this point. I can't see him as one of the pillars the way things are. Even Jungle Boy, who didn't talk, like that was his thing beforehand, that, Jungle Boy doesn't talk. Well, that became his thing, is he has to talk. He has to talk now, and that's why he was sort of put in a stable and kind of developed that. Hook doesn't have that. He's actually out of a stable now. I don't see him with Team Taz. I don't see him with any of those ones he was associated with beforehand, but he's still not talking. So we've kind of got a situation that particular thing can only go on for so long. So what are we going to do with him? The story as they've presented it, the first time that they sort of interacted was on BTE, where you had Danhausen trying to buy Hook off with chips. He kept giving him chips so he wouldn't attack him. And it was kind of a funny interaction, but it was neither here nor there. The next ones you had were him trying to curse Hook and it not working at all. He repeatedly is getting frustrated, more and more frustrated over the fact that Hook won't get cursed every time. You've also got this problem with Danhausen that if you didn't know who he was beforehand, you still have no clue what he is on AEW. You just have this guy in face paint who comes out and yells at people and curses them, and it's sort of this like, what is this guy? What does he do? Who is he? So if you don't know that, and that is kind of a problem AEW does have, is the fact that if you don't know who these people are beforehand, it's just sort of like, and here's so-and-so, and you're like, who? Danhausen's got the situation that you kind of have to establish what and who he is. And I think a way to do that is to put him together with Hook, because they both have problems, but they are complementary problems. That Hook is not really wrestling, and or Hook is wrestling, and Danhausen is not. But Danhausen is a good mouthpiece, I would think, in this. So you've got this whole situation where I think they are pushing the two of them to actually become a tag team. They develop further in Danhausen hilariously destroying several bags of Lay's potato chips in front of Hook this week, and Hook got really angry and slammed him up against a wall and finally spoke. And basically said, you know, if you wanted my attention, you've got my attention. The whole scene came off far more sexually tense than I think either man intended it to be, which is great. Lean into that, fellas. It did sort of set up a thing with the two of them that they're going to interact then again later on. It's supposed to be a match. I don't see how either of them in a match could lose and that be a good thing. So that's why I'm thinking I think they should go with the tag team route, because they are very complementary. You would have what would be a neutral tag team, where one is sort of the funny comedy shtick, and the other one is the Stone Cold Killer. And that is a feature that you have seen in WWE a lot of times. The Rock and Sock connection, where you had one very serious and one very odd character. You had Hell No, which was one that was weird spooky guy and regular character. You even had it in NXT when they put Riddle and Pete Dunne together, so it was like, ooh, crazy quirky pothead with the really serious brawler. So it's a convention that works, and I think it would work very well for the two of them, just because Hook would be very flat, straightforward, come in, beat people up, and Danhausen just kind of like dance around and be like, yay, this is working for me now, because that's the dynamic. Now, follow me down a rabbit hole that no one wants to go down, but we're going to go down it right now. Ultimately, what makes that sort of pairing work is the fact that eventually, because we've said that Hook has no emotion, he doesn't seem to care about anybody or anything, that's been the established thing. Eventually, Danhausen would get attacked, cornered, beaten up, whatever else, or is going to get beaten up, and Hook comes in and saves him. That puts Hook over huge, because everybody's like, oh my gosh, Hook cares about somebody. He's friends with Danhausen, he cares about Danhausen. It reflects well on Hook. Here's the rabbit hole we're going down. That's actually a romance novel trope. I'm not saying anything either way around that other than the fan fiction writes itself, but that is a romance novel trope. You see it a lot, particularly in a subgenre of romance novels, either mafia or biker romance novels, where the main character is very stoic and doesn't have a lot of emotion and doesn't care about people. It could be violent in those two particular tropes, because you do see that. You see this one used across a lot of different romance novel subgenres. But it could even be a violent character, and it comes out that they care about one person, and that one person is the significant other in the story. And that's what actually kind of makes the non-emotional character redemptive in the whole thing, is the fact they do care about one person. And it is a very, very popular romance novel trope. Now, stay with me. Everybody stay with me here, because I'm talking about pro wrestling and a romance novel trope. Okay, stay with me, because Hook has already proven himself incredibly popular with what I am thinking is a young female demographic. I'm not necessarily sure. It's hard for me to tell. To me, he's a young boy, and he looks like a wee little lad to me. But oh my goodness, the Hook thirst that I have seen on Twitter and different things has been pretty extreme. So I am feeling he has a pretty significant, I'm going to say young female following. I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what's happening there with that. But he does have some sort of a following that is very much willing to go along with the fact that of him sort of fitting into a trope that looks like a romance novel trope a little bit. I'm not saying it is a romance novel trope. I'm just saying that it is a trope that works in romance novels, and I feel like it would work in this particular case as well. So if we're going down that route, I think this works great. I think them as a tag team does work, and if eventually you want to turn him heel, he beats up Danhausen, everyone hates him, etc., etc. But as it stands now, I think they actually complement each other pretty well in what their weaknesses are and being able to make up for that with the other one. Now, they could just play this off as a one-hit thing. I think they are wasting something, though, if they don't, because I really do think you have two people who are incredibly over, but I don't know how far we can go with what they have. So put them together and you have something different. It's a weird flavor of ice cream, granted, but does not mean that it wouldn't work. I think it's a great plan. And it's worked in other factions. So that is why I'm saying I think that Hookhausen should be a tag team. I think they should be at least a friendship that keeps working and keeps showing up together and different things, because I don't think it hurts Hook at all. I would say there's a lot of people who are going to say it makes him look not serious and Hook's so serious. I don't think this hurts him at all. I actually think this gives him more character and more likability as a character, particularly if he's still stone cold about everything. Just he likes the weird little demon dude that follows him around and is cool with him. I think that works, and that is why I feel like AEW is sitting on hot gold by having the possibility of having the Hookhausen tag team.